So I normalized not telling anyone anything anymore. And what that really means is for the majority of my life, I'd be talking about, all right, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm up to this. Yeah, like soon this is gonna happen. And what happens is you yourself are giving you yourself belief, determination, commitment, just reminding yourself of like what you're gonna do, right? But the problem is, like how there's an input, there's an output. That input of me giving it to society, whether that's friends or random people, or maybe people at an event that you're meeting, right? Like, hey, what are you up to, right? And then you just go in, just hard, like just telling them because you're so excited. It's just oozing out of you, right? How can you not succeed? But the issue is that input, because people aren't really just you, right? They're not a reflection of you, they're a reflection of society. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, society doesn't have the best name as it once used to. So, when I used to share all of my goals, my ambitions, my projections, this is going to happen, especially when you talk about financial gains or a real money, like hard number. It doesn't matter what that number is. People just, people don't get it. They something breaks in their head, like a malfunction. And the reason is, lo and behold, on the flip side, because I was sharing everything that was on my mind, what is the mind? It's a bunch of my thoughts. It's a bunch of your thoughts. It's a bunch of the ocean, right? And with so many thoughts, what happens is not everything's going to stick, not everything's going to land, right? And that's okay. The point is, when you share with others, there could be bad energy that comes to you. Now, if you're the type of person where every time you share it in your life and everyone's championing it around you, right? They're cheerleading you on. Keep going. Do not ever stop opening your mouth because you have the support. You have the people to say, hey, we're the village. We hear you. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Hey, man, that other day you said something, right? Like accountability. What happened? Are you still doing it? Are you not? And it's not coming out of a, poignant, like, hey, are you really doing it? Or, they're not trying to micromanage you. They're looking out for the best version of you. And that's priceless because you can't actually purchase a group, right? You can purchase a bunch of people to say yes to you, but a true, honest, supportive reaction and just continual just support, it's almost unheard of in the times that we live in today. So when I realize that when I'm sharing all of my things to people, people are like behind my back on their own, just kind of gossiping around it, talking about it, really. And they're just like, hey, this guy always talks, but what is he doing? I was still executing. But clearly, in hindsight, right, because hindsight's 2020, I was probably talking about 20 things and actually focusing on maybe a couple of them, right? Because a lot of those were ideas, and those ideas eventually land into the plan of action. That plan of action, then in the long term or short term or whatever timeline you have set up, right? What happens? What happens is, yeah, you achieve the thing, hopefully, or you keep going. And one fine day, all of these talks of I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, only those people that remember you talking about it, and then when you do it, those people aren't even around. Which really comes to the second point of when you actually share, what is the value? What is the gain? Who is your counsel, basically, is who I think about it now. Is if I'm sharing, right? Let's say I'm a board member of the board, right? If I share with my counsel, I expect strategic advice, heat of caution, obviously a way to, kind of get the ball rolling. And also like, hey, great job on milestones that we're hitting, or if we're not, let's, change up the strategy. Let's look again at the drawing board, right? All of those are progressive, they're productive, they're forward looking, right? But the average person, they're not going to give that to you and they don't owe it to you. If you told me the biggest ambition on your mind, I may care, right? 2 seconds, right? Like, if we meet on the street, you watch videos, that's a different conversation. But if I don't know you and you're just telling me, like, hey, that's awesome for you, pal. I wish you luck, good luck. The world will give you what you want. Keep going, don't stop. Like, it's all of that motivational advice, right? But I may remember that convo depending on, who that was and whatnot. But like in the end, am I a part of that journey? The truth is, I was meeting so many people on the daily, whether online or in person or anywhere. And maybe you are too, or have, or will. And what that means is people are really in it for themselves. And it is just the way society is structured, right? It's about, hey, there's the government, there's the system, and then there's all of these individual contributors who, for lack of a better term, they're individually contributing, so then the rewards are also individually reaped. So when you're doing better than the person who may be working double as hard as you, getting half the wage you are, they may look at it like, because of it's not even small-minded, narrow, ignorant. It's none of that. It's a system, right? The system is not going to tell you, hey, this is the optimal route because if you do this, this is going to happen. No, the system will tell you what it needs. What it needs is maybe it needs doctors in Alabama, which was a real thing where a lot of Indians basically migrated from India. They came over here to America, and now they're second generation, third generation, and fourth, and all the things, right? Similarly, India has a lot of IT resources like information technology, like computer work, right? So that stereotype of, oh, Indians in IT, it came because we wanted technical innovation and just, maintenance with the world. And the resources were that much cheaper abroad. So it's called outsourcing officially, but eventually, there's this concept of onshore and offshore, and then we brought them over here. And so apart from all the, slavery and those type of talks, this is just modern day slavery, right? In other words, you're now getting someone to accept a wage, but there's regulation and movement, and there's rules on where you can go. Like in other words, like your passport, visa issues, citizenship, all these things. So you're really able to earn, but you're really earning on like a rented dime. So that means you don't have anything in your control. And someone else can't really help you out unless they're, the POTUS, President of the United States, or someone really high up. And if the average person doesn't have that average level of connection, which is totally normal, right? Then you're in it for yourself. And what I realized is that there's a lot of people that are willing to support, and a lot of like, hey, I want to apply for the job, right? But if you give them the job, they may not want it. And what that means is it's all you. It's all in you. Your decisions, you have to own them. But when you have somebody that said, oh, you know what, you should try it this way. Or, hey, if I were in your shoes, someone who's never done it before, right? They're like, oh, like this would be the optimal path because the 3 channels I watch, they do this. And so this is the right way and you're going to grow and there's no, way that you're not. What is that really projecting? It's projecting the human experience. And that could work, right? But it also doesn't guarantee that it could work. Or is that person who told you your ideal viewer? Or is someone that maybe would be so loyal, right? From your rise from 0 to maybe 1 million followers, 1 million subscribers, whatever the metric is, right? So if they're not living the life that you want, if they don't have anything that you want, they may not be the person you want to associate with in the future. So why are you taking their advice? And the funny thing about the human psyche / psychology is what? The next step that happens, funny enough, is that literally you may, because it's happened to me, you may blame somebody else for the decision that you're living through. And that's normalized, when you're a kid and you're a child, and I'm guilty myself, right? I went to college, one of the best schools in the world, #1 major in the world, all the laureates, all the things. Worked in corporate America, 10 years so far, got the 6-figure salary, bonuses, all the things, right? That they say, like, hey, go to college, get a job. Bought my first house in my, younger 20s, right? And everything that I learned, I was like, so this was all, I basically got the American dream as the headline, where you have a house, 2 cars, a couple pets, white picket fence, maybe you're married, you got a couple kids, that type of thing. And I had everything but wife and pets. But I had everything else. And it was hard for me to realize. I was like, so this is it? I got a 30-year mortgage, 360 payments to pay after I got my house because the system basically, I just didn't know at the time, right? But I can't blame it. I have to blame something, so people try blaming the system or something else. But I fundamentally went into that decision because from a young age, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. I don't care how, but I'm going to do it. I didn't think about the common sense of when people buy a house, they're not buying a house. They're buying the right to make those mortgage payments, and you're still paying property tax, you're still paying maybe a HOA and all these things, right? But that's more day to day. So in the end, I have this house, great, payments are ongoing, right? Yeah, equity has built up. Like all these things happened, right? But my ideal life, right? Obviously, we all can't just go back in the past and just change everything. But if I knew what I knew, and now it's like the knowledge I have to give to the next person, right? Is like, hey, the path is there because the frank thing is that humans are just folks that are like animals. We just exist, man. And of course, any input is going to have an output. So in society, when you look at old time contracts, it makes sense. You start telling people you're nonsense, whether it's good or bad, like somebody's going to do something with it, right? So in other words, if it's helpful, they may go, try to implement it. If it's a tip, hey, have you tried this? Hey, have you seen this, right? Seen is more of a reaction, right? So when you talk about, hey, I heard this, I saw this, it's more gossip. It's not like it's some fruitful conversation where the next NASA spaceship is going to be, built in the next, 6 weeks, right? It's usually not that type of advice. People are just walking around and giving away, that much value, right? So I realized that when I was sharing everything with everyone, nothing really came of it. It did have many benefits because a part of the counsel I have today is because I shared so much, right? So just like sales, if you're trying to close a sale, you may need to hit up so many different leads, they're called. And if you have like a top of funnel conversion, those top funnel leads get to the next step, get to the next step, get to the next step, and then they may purchase or like, follow, subscribe if that's the goal, right? Or whatever the conversion task is. But in the end, I will say this. Now that I have not, what has changed? Honestly, I think about it a lot. I may share it here on the videos, just to give value to someone else. But I'm realizing like everyone is in their own lane, especially as you get older, responsibilities, those kind of things, because that's the system, that's how it's set up. But no one knows how to perfectly, let's say, articulate this in the older generations for the younger. And when we're young, we're like stupid, man. We're running around, having fun, kicking rocks, literally. And that's the thing, society, I believe, this is its own video, is it giving what it wish it gave. So in other words, kids, having a great time, all the things. And of course, there's a lot of children that go through a lot of nonsense. But it's like when you get to the adulting stage, people automatically, they turned 18, they did, they're an adult now, like they should know better. It's like, dude, like there's a lot of sadness, a lot of dark feelings, a lot of those things with many people. There's no individuals, right? But like at a strata of a generation, some of them are literally like, yo, I suffered, so you should suffer too. And I'm like, those people don't deserve to be on this planet. That's how I feel. Because it's like, yo, your suffering is your choice. Like, yeah, it sucked. Maybe you didn't want to have a kid before you did, right? Sucks. Maybe you didn't, realize how much a pet would cost before, you got them, and then now pet bills are adding up. So I'm not trying to say in one nutshell everyone is useless. But until they have a worth to bring to the table, chances are they're sharpening their knife on their own, in the dark, in the corner, or just, after hours, whatever that means. For me, I sharpen my knife under, the hood. In other words, in the night, laptop, internet, my whole setup is over here off camera. And so when I see this, it's like, hey, I grinded because of what I thought, what I knew, the internet, what time frames, all those type of things. Now, if you have a job, a 9 to 5, you can't really grind harder. You got to grind during those hours, maybe in front of people you care about or don't care about, or if you don't have a job, maybe they'll never hit you up, because when you leave a job or whatever, it's that fishbowl, it's that little system, but it's not like a friend usually exists outside of it unless you knew them before it. So all of that to say, when you just literally don't say anything to the world, but you're achieving, it attracts attention, energy. Because people either are, oh my gosh, how is that possible? It's a scam. They look away. Inverse way. They're like, oh my gosh, what is that guy doing? I need to know, right? But either way, you're not getting any input because that person's not speaking. Why? Because they've learned lessons. Like if I keep talking, there's just this middle layer of people just talking, but you're not here, and you're not here. You're not at the bottom, you're not at the top. You're kind of trying to traverse through, and there's going to be so much, quote unquote, traffic on the highway, for lack of a better term, and congestion. And you're going to have honks, honking, indicators running, people braking suddenly. There's so much activity, but nothing helps towards the goal that you're trying to achieve. So in this video, I'm going to talk about something that I'm doing. It's okay if you don't care, right? And especially on the topic of this video. But this video is sponsored by me. And basically, after all of the ups and downs as an investor, which I am outside of everything on YouTube, this is the second channel. I basically have gone from the stock market to the cryptocurrency market to real estate to different just anything personal finance to then actually making money to the next level, right? So if you're talking about, let's say, hey, we're earning, we're saving, we're investing, that triangle, trifecta, it's basically what I've been doing over years in different industries and seeing what is the optimal path. So after everything, I'm confident here to say, hey, I'm building a 250 room hotel. It's a project, construction has just started. So this project, I say project because it's a real estate slash construction project. Basically, it's crowdfunding related. In other words, owners of land, we're going to develop it. So more than that equity and even our own money is going to go into it. But the difference is I can go to the bank and I can get egregious rates because this is basically land we have that we're going to develop. So there's appreciation there. It's a commercial development. So then you have even more appreciation. And then in general, right, it's a commercial project. So in the end, the rates are going to be higher if we're borrowing from the bank. But in terms of cash flows and actual appreciation of the land, it's going to be your benefit if you choose to join in. So we're basically doing it together. It's around 2 to 3 years to see the whole project come out through. But the beauty is, yeah, land goes up appreciation wise when it gets developed, and that's after the fact. Yet, instead of paying interest to the bank, I'm basically happy to pay that difference to us, right? So investments are from 15K up to 3 mil, and we're talking not like 1-2% interest rate. It's going to be very comparable, right? On YouTube and compliance, I can't tell you like guaranteed it's going to be 10 or 11%, right? But at the same time, when we talk, I'm happy to get into more of those details, and this is before construction happens. So again, modeling on cash flows from actual profit sharing, like after, right? Everything is open and everything. That could be that much higher. I can't guarantee it, right? But we're talking around that range just even before the fact. And then you obviously have appreciation because we're talking not just 1x or 1.5x kind of, we're talking potential of 2 times, 3 times your money by just letting it quote unquote sit, and you're still getting interest on it. So it's definitely a different type of investment thinking and strategy that I'm implementing because of my own experience from what you see in different industries and what's successful, what wins for the investor, what wins for the developer from a real estate perspective, and all the things. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description below. We'll talk. I'll give us all the details, not a thing. And after this, I'll leave a video over here to check out. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for coming to the end. Peace.